Welcome to the Rundown. And the proverb, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, dates back over 2,000 years. But these days, right here in the Middle East, it is sounding more modern than ever. We're talking in this case about Israel and Saudi Arabia. They're two countries with no official ties, even publicly hostile. But their mutual rivalry with Iran is bringing them closer and closer together.
Now it's taken an even more public turn with an unprecedented interview in the Israeli military chiefs of staff Gadi Eisenkot speaking with Saudi Arabia's Elaf newspaper and telling them the Jewish state is ready to share intelligence with Riyadh on Iran.
Our senior defense correspondent Shai Ben-Ari here with us. And Shai, place this for us. Give some context to our viewers on just how unusual this is. An Israeli military chief of staff, no less, publicly speaking to a Saudi newspaper about one of the things that is normally most discreet, intelligence sharing.
Right. It's very unusual. The Eisenkot rarely gives any kind of interview, so to give an interview to the biggest regional power which Israel has no formal ties with is very significant, but it's maybe not as surprising as it would have been, say, a few years ago. We do know, and this is something that the Israeli Prime Minister has alluded to, a regional collaboration with the moderate Sunni axis, as it's known, and there's no doubt that Saudi Arabia is the leader of that axis. In this interview, of course, Eisenkot saying, we were never enemies, which is, I'm not sure how accurate that statement is. He says we never fought them directly. That's perhaps true, though Saudi Arabia was certainly a member, you could say, of the general alliance against Israel when you talk about the War of Independence, 1967, 1973. He says we're ready to share info if necessary to block the expansion of two Shiite crescents, speaking about one going through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, the other perhaps more threatening towards Saudi Arabia through Bahrain and Yemen. This is something that Netanyahu has alluded to, of course. Eisenkot also spoke positively about the Trump administration's policy in the region. Let's see some of that. With President Donald Trump, he says there is an opportunity for a new international alliance in the region and a major strategic plan to stop the Iranian threat there. When he speaks so openly about an international alliance in this region to a Saudi newspaper, I don't think there can be any doubts about what the significance is there. You can also mention, of course, Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah chief's comments just a few days ago about how the Saudis were supposedly offering Israel billions to do their own dirty work, to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon. Something that can't be ruled out as a premise. Perhaps the Saudis really do want that.
And something that, to just pause on that, we just heard from Iran Lerman here in the studio saying we do have the same interest with Saudi Arabia, but we are not going to do their dirty work for them. We will follow our own interests, which, as you say, might be aligned.
Right, I agree with that, and certainly the message coming from Eisenkot in this newspaper interview with a Saudi outlet saying we have no intention of initiating an attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon and starting war. We will not accept, though, a strategic threat to the state of Israel. So perhaps not everything the Saudis want to hear.
When Iran Lerman, a former top Israeli official, also alluded to that there's more under the surface in terms of Israeli cooperation with some Arab nations in the regime that, of course, is publicly known. It's been rumored for years, perhaps, that Israel, through third parties, shares its intelligence. But Gadi Eisenkot, by coming out publicly, seems to be sending a message to the Saudis. Let's bring it out more in the open.
Right. It seems to be exactly what Israel wants to do. Just the very decision to conduct this interview with a Saudi outlet. The publicity really is the main key factor here. The content, maybe some of it was somewhat surprising, but most of it we know already. That public element to it, at least from the Israeli perspective, and I would say there's probably Saudi collusion here as well. I think that's the major development.